Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to learn how to use the var, let, and const variable declarations in JavaScript. After this tutorial, you should no longer have a problem dealing with these declarations. So I hope I have your full attention. With that said, let's get on with the video. So I hope you already know how to create a simple variable. Things like reserved words and rules for naming variables. Now, whenever you get confused about which variable declaration to use, I want you to think about two things: variable reassignment and variable scope. Variable reassignment is the process of assigning a new value to a variable. Let allows variable reassignment. var allows it as well. However, const does not allow reassignment of variables. Okay, so I'm using an online JavaScript editor to show the examples here. So first and foremost, I'm going to create a variable using let variable declaration, and then I'm going to attempt to reassign it. On the next line, I would assign it to 100, and then let's try to log it and see what happens. Since let allows reassignment, we can see the result is there. It shows 100, so that's perfectly fine. So let's change that to var, and that should yes. So var also allows reassignment as well, as we can see. How about const? Well, when we use the const variable declaration, it says invalid assignment because const, as we already know, does not allow variable reassignment. The reason why most JavaScript developers use const for most variables is simply because it's easier to debug. Accidental reassignment will force an error as opposed to let and var. So if you want to be seen as a good JavaScript developer, start using const more often. However, const variables are not immutable. Modifications can still be made, especially when dealing with collections. Variable scope defines where variables can be accessed or referenced. The most common variable scopes in JavaScript are global scope, block scope, and lexical scope. Global scope variable is a variable that can be accessed or referenced from any part of the code. Block scope variable will not be accessible from outside the block it was created in. Lexical scope is the scope within functions. When you define a variable in a function, it cannot be accessed outside the function. So I'm going to go ahead and create a const global variable, which is outside. This variable can be accessed in any part of the code because it's global. So I'm going to give it Idrissa. And I'm going to create a simple if block, and I'm going to say if global is equals to Idrissa, which we already know is going to be true. So I'm going to create a block scoped variable inside this one. So we're going to start with const variable declaration. So const block, and we set it to let's say 100. Set it to 100. Now I'm going to attempt to access this variable from outside of the if block. As we know, the variable block is block scoped. So as we can see, it says it throws an error and it says it's not defined. That's because we are using const, because const is block scoped, so we can't access it from outside the block that it was created in, which is the if block in this case. And if we change it to let, and let's see what happens this time. It's the same thing because let is also block scoped. So any variable with let is block scoped. Now let's use var. When we use var, we see that we get an output. So that means var is not block scoped. For a lexically scoped variable, even if we use var, since this function is lexically scoped, we cannot access the value it says is undefined. I hope you now understand the differences between the three variable declaration. Here is a table summary of what we have just talked about. Thank you for watching.